All right. So, book four, The Tragic Queen of Carthage, is a pretty telling title to the book. It kind of gives you some pretty heavy foreshadowing there. Um, this comes right on the tail end of Aeneas's telling of his journey getting to Carthage, right? So he finishes up. We talked in the call last time about how he basically comes to the end of book three and just sort of like comes to a winding halt when Anchises dies. And you can tell it's just like this crushing blow for him. Um, Obviously, there's story between the death of Anchises and where Aeneas is standing right now, but we don't really get a lot of that color other than the stuff that's told to you in book one. So um, there's some stuff that's sort of left obscure, which I think is fine. Um, I'm not one to like start critiquing one of the greatest authors of Western literature ever. So it's fine. But we kind of talked about how big of a deal that is. I think it sets Aeneas up for sort of what happens in this next stage.
Yeah.
I think he's got some like willful, like happy to go be distracted and not have to dwell on this thing that's crushing him emotionally. Um, I think he's looking for this distraction, and then lo and behold, he finds it really good.
Yeah.
Like arguably, like for a man,
probably the best,
like the epitome of distraction.
Yeah.
Like if you look at King David, the same thing is the thing is that is his sort of downfall. So similar situation happening here with Aeneas. So towards the beginning of the book, it is just the queen sort of analyzing and being somewhat enthralled with him, with his courage, the sheer pride of his line. Those are things that keep coming up, and we're just going to kind of keep pointing those out. Do with them what you will. But for some reason, like lineage and bloodline are really big deals to the ancients. We sort of act like it's wrong for you to recognize those things now, but they seem to have no problems with it. In fact, she actually does this like counterpoint thing where she goes, "Fear exposes the lowborn man at once."
Yeah.
And what she's actually doing is talking about how highborn he is, because he's fearless and courageous and is brave. So, yeah,
in all of the West,
that single line,
yeah,
fear exposes the lowborn man at once. Content idea. Sorry, that's what my brain does. So she is clearly head over heels in love with him, and it's at this point that you now have her discussing it with her sister. She at first is still very devoted to honoring her past husband, who is dead now, at the hands of her own brother. So once again, tragic Dido. Her story genuinely is terrifically sad. But her sister sort of talks her into like, what would be so wrong with you, like having some enjoyment and like joy and happiness in your life? Yeah. Like, why would that be so bad? And so she's looking for any excuse to sort of take the leap, and then her sister kind of gives her the excuse she's looking for, which then goes on to the continuation of Juno and Venus. Venus being Aeneas's mother, Juno being the goddess who loves Carthage, and I think they're Tyrrhenians that have kind of settled there from Tyre.
Yeah.
So she loves those people. She hates the Trojans because of a beauty contest that she didn't win. So
this whole book could just be summed up as like women, bro.
Yeah.
On to the next.
Like, no man fears anything like the wrath of a woman scorned. Yeah. Which Juno is. And so that's what you have going on the whole time is Juno and Venus going back and forth. But you have like the fates who have decreed like this is where Aeneas is going. This is where his bloodline will go. This is what will come of it. There's a kingdom that's coming that he's going to be the founder of. That's what's happening because Jove has decreed it. The fates have spoken, which is eerily similar to like God is sovereign, like the Lord does as he pleases, and it's all good. So like they're obviously it's a pagan story, but there's some definite like Christian elements to it.
Yeah, fumbling after truth and finding parts of it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, like picking up traces of it at least. I think Virgil, Ben and I have talked about this. Ben Garrett and I have talked about this. He's utterly convinced that Virgil read Moses
Hmm.
and like was majorly influenced by some of the Old Testament authors. I think that's definitely possible.
It makes it.
Well, and also doesn't he always say something like all the myths point to the true myth or something like he says something like that all the time.
Yeah, so he actually, I think he said it last night. Like all myths are the place where orthopraxy and like narrative come collide. Like these great overarching themes of human reality meet with the actual touching down, like where the rubber meets the road. And so to read myth is to actually stand at the cross point of those two things without having to experience it in your own life.
Yeah, he said it was not seeing the truth; it's getting a taste of the truth, or something.
Yeah.
Something of that effect.
Not just seeing it, but
Yeah.
tasting it.
Yeah.
Is the difference between just narrative and myth.
Yeah.
And so this is very much a myth. And like a foundational, like founding myth, especially of Rome, but really of Western culture, period.
Mhm.
So you have all of these themes that continue to play out for endless time to come. So you have Juno and Venus that make this pact. Very much Juno is trying to be sly and like trick Venus into something, but Venus kind of sees through the ploy.
Yeah.
She very much sees the fact that this is a scheme. But she just is like, I'm gonna willingly walk into the trap and like spring it, knowing that it's gonna spring. It's okay. I've got this under control. And so unfortunately for Dido, that's what takes place.
She's who gets caught in the trap.
Yeah, she is the one who's really caught in the snare.
Yeah.
So they leave to go on this hunting journey. They're going to go out, and I think this is something that we should bring back, similar to the games. But like royalty and nobility would always have great tournaments and feasts and hunts, and it was a thing that you went and did together. Was like the nobility would go out and hunt game. So maybe we'll get around to that someday in the future with the new Christendom, but we'll stick with the games for now. See if we can execute that.
A little bit easier to pull off.
Yeah. So you get on this hunt, and Juno causes the sky to erupt in storms, and it's Aeneas and Dido retreat to this cave where they consummate this marriage. Right. It is the pact is sealed. What's interesting after that is that before we get to rumor, actually we'll do rumor first, then we'll talk about the city sort of like just stopping. Uh-oh, he dropped off. That's okay. We'll keep the recording going. So rumor is actually one of the gods. Rumor is swiftest of the evils of all the evils in the world. She thrives on speed, stronger for every stride. And so the rumor of their marriage flies across northern Africa, reaching everyone's ears almost overnight. You have this king who actually gave Dido the land that she is now building Carthage on. He let her have it, and then later extended the offer of marriage, and she declined. So he's already slighted by that. Rightfully so.
Especially like if you're looking at marriage from a more ancient perspective.
For sure.
Way more usually about ties and power and
like pacts.
Yeah, more so than like individualistic love.
For sure.
So yeah, he has seemingly a pretty legitimate claim to be aggrieved.
Yeah. His response, his name is Iarbas, is the son of an African nymph who is also the son of Job, which is pretty wild, actually. this is not just like some dude. He's a big character, right? So what he does is he actually goes out and goes to one of the altars of Jove and pours out prayers and basically taunts God.
Yeah.
Like the king of the gods. He's like, apparently we're all fools to dread the bolts that you hurl. Apparently it's all just aimless fires high in the clouds that terrify us. Apparently, like it's all empty noise and peals of thunder. It's not that like there's no reason for me to fear you. There's no reason for me to continue to pour offerings out on your altar.
Yeah.
Because people just get to do whatever they want, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
Like this guy, this Trojan leaves and actually calls him a second Paris, which is quite an interesting insult.
Yeah.
Like this new Trojan Paris shows up here and once again steals a queen away and like apparently he just gets to get away.
That's fine. Yeah.
Which is funny because that's not at all what happened at Troy.
No.
Like Paris didn't just get away with stealing Helen, right?
Yeah, and he and Helen are in sort of.
Yeah.
Like certainly, they all bear culpability, but they're, none of them were just completely acting of their own will or accord. I think the gods were kind of like pulling all of these strings
the whole time. Yeah, for sure. Like when Paris and Helen sort of fall in love, it's actually because Paris awarded is it Venus or Aphrodite?
Yeah,
Aphrodite.
Same. But yeah.
Awards her the title of most beautiful in order to get Helen.
Yeah.
And so there's very much.
And he had a choice to make. Like it wasn't like he just decided that he was going to say that. Like he had three choices and he chose one of three options, which you don't know what would have happened otherwise because he made the choice he made, but like the other choices would not have been consequence free because you'd had two women that were scorned.
Yeah.
Like you're gonna make one happy and you're gonna upset two, no matter which one you make happy. Like it kind of consistently the Hera, Athena, and Aphrodite are like the three kind of most conniving, manipulative forces in the pantheon.
Yeah.
They're always causing trouble and or coming to the aid of who they think is appropriate for pretty petty reasons. Like what we would look at is like that's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, selfish and conceited. So, at this point, this king in northern Africa has awakened Zeus, who sort of almost seems like he just wasn't paying attention. Like
characterized as that.
Yeah,
a lot. Like he's like either absent or like busy with other things or whatever but routinely gods and men and women throughout Greek mythology, Roman mythology are like having like, hey, like pay attention over here.
Yeah.
Like, you suck. Like
which is
help me.
We've sort of drawn some Christian parallels. This is very much a Christian, not a parallel.
Yeah, and like the first handful of books in City of God, this was like one of the big things that Augustine gets at. Like, you guys are attributing the fall of Rome to Christianity, but like, look at what your gods like do and don't do.
Yeah.
Like, how do you make this make sense?
Yeah.
And like, that's one of the things he repeatedly says. Like, your gods are petty and like unjust in every way. Like they're, if they're real, then they're terrible.
Yeah.
Because they're no better or worse than the men that they're ruling over. They're just more powerful.
Yeah, they just have more power.
Yeah.
So Jove is awakened to the fact that Aeneas is now just residing in Carthage, has married Dido, doesn't seem to be on mission anymore. He's not doing what he's been like asked to do, what his mission is that's been set before him. So you then have Jove send Mercury down to alert Aeneas that like this is not it. You have to leave. Like you have to go do what you're supposed to do. I think his thing here is really interesting. He says, that he is to master Italy, rife with leaders shrill with the cries of war, to sire a people sprung from Teucer's blood, which is Teucer is one of Aeneas's forebears, and then to bring the entire world beneath the rule of law, which is the mission of Rome.
Yes.
The Pax Romana is to extend the peace of Rome, which depends on the rule of law in Rome. The fact that justice actually exists and is administered is one of the main things of the government and the culture that marked Rome. And so you have that like given to Aeneas here so that Romans in their day, like in Virgil's day, would see it and go, this is who we are. We are those that live by the law. They extend the law to the world. That's what we're doing as a culture, is bringing the entire world underneath the rule of law. He then, to kind of prod him, he goes, if such a glorious destiny cannot fire his spirit, if he will not shoulder the task for his own fame, does the father of Ascanius grudge his son the walls of Rome? Which is quite the gig. Like, you're just gonna let your son just like live up second-rate citizen in Carthage, which is really interesting because it's Carthage. It's actually Dido's kingdom. It's not Aeneas's kingdom. He would be marrying in and basically like ruling it alongside her rather than her ruling it alongside him. Which is a large distinction. So his son would essentially end up being like sort of like a bastardized like stepson.
Yeah, if he and Dido were to sire children, then
That child
Ascanius would just kind of be
along for the ride.
possibly killed. Like a historical norm would be to kill him because it just complicates things. But if not, then he'd just be like, you kind of maybe go over here and you get a couple.
Maybe he's exiled.
Who knows? Like, give him a small little fiefdom to you play over here while we do real things.
Which is an interesting theme to think about. Like, what you're doing as a father right now, you're thinking only about you. Like, you're thinking about your own happiness, the fact that you don't want to dwell on the death of your father, the fact that this woman is clearly worthy of love. Like, she's beautiful, she's elegant, she's nobility, she is worthy of all of this, no doubt. But that's not really the point. Like, the point is that you would be essentially shunning and like almost in a sense like disowning your son in order to continue this. Big deal.
Kind of like almost a fifth commandment violation. And so it's like in the sense that even non-Christians understand this because this is how the world works. Like, you're supposed to have a love for your people, like especially your family, like your son, and God creating the world. Like, this is kind of everybody should get this. It's a special type of retard that doesn't understand this. And so they just reminding him of like, hey, like, what are you doing? Like the most basic of things. Like, I don't care if you want to throw it all away, but like, what about your kid?
Yeah, for sure. So Jove gives Mercury this message, sends him down. You get this really, really interesting and sort of like extra poetic description of Mercury as he flies down. And then Mercury gives almost a word for word message that was given to him to Aeneas. Immediately, Aeneas is struck by this. The realization that he's not doing what he's supposed to be doing is very evident, very fast. And he begins to change course.
And like the story, like the narrative doesn't like say, but he's either completely ignorant of the fact, or like he's like, I would assume more likely he's like subconsciously aware, like something's not quite right, but it's way easier not to think about it and just be distracted. But when it is brought to his attention, it's like he can't unsee it or ignore it.
Right. So immediately he commands his men to start making ready to leave. Before that, I do want to point out that during this sort of like love affair going on between Dido and Aeneas, the building of the city of Carthage, which was underway when Aeneas got there, completely comes to a halt.
And before it had been going impressively. Like they've been, they're kind of the envy of everybody around them. They're, quickly building this very impressive city.
Yeah.
Everything was very well organized, moving very smoothly.
Aeneas makes note of it when they first land.
Yeah, he's impressed by how by the quality and direction of Dido's leadership.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But because they're both distracted with one another, they're not any longer thinking of their lineage and like the things that are to come. They're not thinking of these projects that they're actually working on. And suddenly those projects just stop getting any attention.
Yeah.
Like no one's giving any orders. In some sense, I think part of it is that like Dido now is functioning as a queen to a king, but the king is not the one who is like the leader of this people. And so like he's not issuing orders, but she's not either. And so nothing's getting done. So just interesting thing to point out there.
Yeah.
So after this, Aeneas makes ready. Dido finds out that he's planning to leave very quickly. And they have an interaction over it that's pretty tense. And of course, Aeneas is not like unaffected by all of this. It's not like he's like
he still loves her.
Yeah, it's not like he's like some sort of like desperado character where he's like, all right, girl, gotta go. Yeah. Like, I don't care that you're sad. It's like he's very heartbroken over the fact that like he let himself get into the situation and now he has to abandon it.
This collateral damage that he has to leave.
He's remorseful over it for sure. Obviously, Dido is destroyed. She doesn't know.
She kind of oscillates between like extreme rage and just like desperate wailing and crying and begging.
Despair, yeah. Another interesting thing is that during this whole time, while Aeneas is in the throes of this missionless affair that's driven by just like distraction and emotion, Virgil does not call him Pious Aeneas. As soon as he starts getting his men ready to leave again and like starts heading back in the direction that his mission is in, he suddenly becomes Pious Aeneas again.
Yeah.
Like he's duty bound Aeneas, but during this short portion, he wasn't.
No.
That's not who he was. And so in some sense, like he had abandoned himself for her. And so you see him pick back up his mantle.
Which probably everybody knows personally. Like you can like see that acting out with somebody that you know in your own life.
Yeah, you notice this when people get into like some dude gets a new girlfriend and all of a sudden his taste in music changes.
You're not the same guy.
Yeah, like something's different.
Yeah.
And like, I don't think it's you that is fueling the change.
Yeah, like what's going on here?
Exactly. Same thing happened with Aeneas, which just goes to show you too, like no one's above that. Like, that's just human nature. People are that
never too good for that.
No.
And that can like obviously marriage or like a male female dynamics probably the most potent example of that, but like that happens just like any relationship that you allow yourself to associating with people will either make you better and put you more on mission or worse and less on mission.
Yeah.
And that can happen with buddies just as much as it can with a lover.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. I was going to point out like this is actually a tool, like it's a lever that needs to be pulled in the right direction. It's not that you like turn into this person, which I think our culture is sort of infatuated with, is like, I don't ever do anything trendy. Like I've been saying this for years.
Hipster-esque.
Very like, you guys go back and forth on what you like. I've liked this weird craft beer forever.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, that thing is actually not better. It's in some ways like you're just really proud of the fact that you're stagnant. And you're like, congratulations, you haven't changed at all, which means you haven't progressed at all. And I think this is actually one of those really good levers that you can pull in the right direction. If you find a really good church, community, group of friends, whatever it is, like you can actually allow them to influence you in a good way.
Yeah.
And like willingly go, I'm going to start doing things the way that you guys do them because I want to be more like you.
Yeah.
Which can be extremely productive for you.
Yeah. Generally, it would seem that like if you're making that conscious decision, it's more often than not a good decision.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're off, kind of operate on autopilot and you just are like allowing yourself to be swayed in whatever direction the people you happen to be around are moving, like usually that's bad.
Yeah, that's a good way of good signal there. Like, am I doing this because I want to do this? Because I like am looking to get more of the good, true, and beautiful out of it, or am I doing it just because like that's just what we're doing?
Yeah, people rarely are going to like something. Yeah, the guys that we associate with rarely are going to like make a conscious decision like an alcoholic wife beater. Like, let me be more like him. No,
Let's get more like that.
Yeah.
Correct. So after this, Dido starts making a plan with her sister. Her sister does not know the intent of this plan, but essentially starts helping Dido prepare for her own
suicide.
Yeah. So there's some back and forth here, but through it, Aeneas's resolve grows stronger and stronger and stronger, and Dido gets more and more hysterical. Things continue to move in those two directions as we move towards the end of the chapter. And by the end, you have Aeneas no longer being affected by Dido's crying in tears. No tears can move him now, at some point, is what he says. Whereas she is utterly distraught.
Yeah, he's described as like an oak.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
like a weathered oak that's rooted and can't be moved. Yeah. He has a heading. He's going that direction. Mm-hmm. He's an unstoppable force moving that way. Yeah. And she's sort of frantically dancing around him, trying to get him to stop. Yeah. But he's beyond stopping now. So you end the chapter with this gut-wrenching description of her stabbing herself with a Trojan sword. It was given to her as a gift by Aeneas.
Her sister like walking in and finding out this work that she'd done was actually to like set her sister up to be able to kill herself in this horrific, but impressive, like the work like it was highly produced manner.
Yeah. She right before her death, she has this line about between their lines forever, war, endless war. Is that in this chapter, or am I thinking of something?
I don't know if that exact quote's in here, but yeah, no, she before she dies, one of the last things she does is like essentially like curse those bloodlines to. There are a couple different allusions to Romans and Carthaginians.
This is my prayer, my final cry. I pour it out with my lifeblood. You Tyrians, harry with hatred all his line. His race to come, make that offering to my ashes and send it down below. No love between our peoples ever, no pacts of peace. Come rising up from my bones, you avenger still unknown, to stalk those Trojan settlers, hunt with fire and iron, now or in time to come, whenever the power is yours. Shore clash with shore, sea against sea and sword against sword. This is my curse, war between our peoples, all their children, endless war.
Yeah. And like Virgil is writing this in hindsight. Well, he's like making this illusion in hindsight. He knows how the three Punic Wars have played out, and he knows that Rome has destroyed Carthage and plowed it under with salt.
I think she's actually referring to Hannibal.
Yes,
when she's like, Avenger, still unknown, rise from my bones and stalk them with iron and fire.
Yes,
she's actually referencing Hannibal to come, which is one of the more just like epic,
Yeah.
like wow,
Yeah.
That's gnarly. So that kind of ends the narrative of that particular book. We got a little bit of time. You want to expound at all on that? This sort of the way Virgil sets up this endless war between Carthage and Rome.
In what sense are you?
Like it seems like in retrospect, so he's like he's giving this to the Romans, but it's almost like he is. And I have a question about this. If you were going to write like the birth story of your enemy, would you make it this tragic? Because if I'm a Roman, I suddenly have a whole lot of like heartfelt.
Oh yeah, no, I would not.
Sorrow.
I wouldn't make it this relatable. Like,
Like,
Dido, she like, she's being on one hand she's like being controlled by the gods, but like but still like she clearly doesn't conduct herself like she knows what she should be doing, and that's not marrying Aeneas. She like fights it, she gives in, so she does wrong. She's in sin in a sense, but very relatably. Like I don't know how you can read this account of her and just completely be like, dummy. Like like you kind of have to feel badly for her.
And he doesn't come off as like this is the birth of the villains.
No, not at all.
Which I find really interesting.
Really, yeah. Like in a way, you could read it as like Rome created Carthage, or like made the enemy of Carthage.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Like it maybe, and this is just speculation. I don't have anything to back this up. But like because Virgil is writing this in retrospect. This is after Carthage has been raised. So maybe he's kind of looking back at it with rose-colored glasses. In a sense, like like without Carthage, there would have been no Rome. Like yeah,
it was this fight.
Yeah,
this
like every
like
every great champion needs someone to exactly. And so maybe that's part of what's going on. Could be completely off base there. But they were a prolific enemy. It took 3 wars over the course of hundreds of years to actually finally solve the problem.
Yeah,
it wasn't just a typical Roman conquest where there was a war, they went in and they killed everybody, and then they were now it was part of Rome. Like it was brutal warfare. It was very very well contested, and I think there's a strong argument to be made that like Rome would not have been who they are because they never would have had to be without an enemy like Carthage.
Yeah.
So maybe that's part of what's going on there.
I think now that I'm thinking about it, there might be something to the fact that like you're almost paying homage to an enemy that is different than all the other ones you've faced. And you're going like, we actually have this similar founding. Like we have this we come from similar kinds of people.
Yeah.
Which is why we weren't able to just stomp you out immediately.
Yeah.
Like you were different than everyone else.
Yeah.
And so it's all like you're saying, like almost like you're kind of paying homage to this enemy.
Yeah.
After the fact.
Yeah.
Very, very interesting kind of way he sets up, like just to have the intellect to like reach back into the past and tell this story that predicts something that's now happened in your past, but from a futurist perspective, is shocking. Like, levels of brain power going on there.
Even as a reader to like understand what's kind of a trippy thing to wrap your head around, like what he's doing. And so he as the writer who like first thinks like, oh, I should do that, and then does it in a way, and like in such a beautiful way.
It's a theme too, like it's gonna keep coming up. This thing where he takes you back in time from the Romans' perspective and then cast the vision forward into his recent past or current present to sort of predict the things that are happening in his present day, as if the gods set them up long ago. Really, really good. Anything else you want to add to this before we wrap it up?
I think we touched on pretty much everything that I had been thinking about. Really, just the staying on and returning theme. He was this period of time was not insignificant where he was in Carthage. It was, I don't know if it says specifically how much time they were there, but it was, a while.
Yeah, he wasn't there for 2 weeks.
No, they were embroiled in this affair for
Quite
a period of time. So that was time-wise significant, but from when Mercury came and visited to when their ships were sailing, from a time perspective, that is pretty insignificant. Like a lot happened, but it was in a brief period of time. So like from the time he realized that what he was doing was wrong to the time that he fixed it at great personal cost, was like from when he woke up, in a sense, like he was immediately back, and he's like, well, waiting more isn't going to be better. Like this, we need to do what we need to do, and this hurts a lot. But he did it quickly, didn't waste time. Did it as graciously, I guess, as he could. Like his goal was not to hurt Dido or the Carthaginians. Obviously, that is what happened. There's a lot of collateral damage, but he got back on mission quickly. And so, like, as a warning, like, don't do that. Like, don't be in that position where you need to, but also, whether hopefully much more minor than this, but like, we all catch ourselves like, yeah, maybe it's just as small as like, man, I've been eating like kind of a jerk for the past couple of weeks. I should I don't need to be quite this heavy. You're like, I've been slacking off of my training a little bit. Like I'm capable of more. Like the correct answer isn't like, oh well, in a couple of weeks I'm busy, and then but I'll tell you what, like 2 Mondays from now, we're locked in. Like that, like that's not gonna make things easier or better. Yeah, so, whatever you can do now, do it.
Do it.
And whether that's is something as small as that, or extrapolate it all the way up to whatever.
I haven't looked my wife in the face and asked her how she's doing.
Yeah.
And I don't know how long. And then like all of a sudden you go, oh, I should do that right now.
Yeah. Yes.
Like go do it now. Like don't find yourself slacking or abdicating or even in sin. And then you should be like, well, I guess I probably ought to do something like about this sometime. Like no, like don't linger there. Turn now. Like act now. Do something about it immediately. Change course. Yeah, really good. All right, guys. That pretty much wraps up book 4. We will do book 5 in 2 weeks. It will be interesting, especially with the new Christendom games coming up. We'll be talking about the funeral games for Anchises,
which in large part
was the inspiration for what we're doing this summer in Ogden. So really excited to talk about that. And hope you guys enjoyed this. We will see you guys hopefully on the next call.
Yeah.